Hello, welcome to a work together. It's been a while since I've done a larger project, but I've been wanting to get into making some cards and I needed a way to store them as I pre-make cards for birthdays and special occasions. And so I thought that I would start with a place to keep them. So this is what I've come up with. All it is an individual little um like file holders, I guess, that I've put into a little box, and I will be putting little um, labels in them with clipboards or with paper clips, and then I will store my cards in here. So I don't need a really big one. You could add more pockets if you want to. I don't really need a big one because I don't have a lot of people that I send cards to. So I just kind of thought I would go with 3. What I think I'm going to do is use this one for birthdays, this one for thank yous and just hellos, and then this back one I will store the envelopes in. And then, or maybe I'll do it, I don't know. I don't know for sure how I'll do it, but another way that you could do it is I was originally going to make 4 of them, and then I was going to do January, February, March in one, and then, 3 months in each one. But then I decided that I wanted to do some thank you cards and some hello cards too, so I want to divvy them up by category rather than by month. Okay? So what you need to make that project is you're going to need, to make it exactly like I did, you're going to need 3 pieces of 8.5 by 11, and we're going to use 1 piece of 12 by 12 cardstock, and I'm going to use black for my bottom, and I'm going to use craft for my tags. Okay? So we're going to start off with the scoring. Once you make one, it's really easy to get them sorted down. It's pretty simple to get together. Okay, so you're going to put your 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper in on your scoreboard with the 11 across the top, the 11th length here. We're going to make our first score mark at 4.5. And then we're going to come and make our second one at 6. And that's going to give us 1.5 inches of space inside the box. If you want more, if you want less, you can easily have less. To make it out of 1 sheet of paper, you can't really do any more than 1.5 inches. That's why I decided to use 3 boxes, so I could have more space. But you can do less if you want to, but I like the 1.5 inches. And then we're gonna score. So we've scored at 4.5, 6, and then we're gonna come and score at 9.5. Okay. Then we're gonna turn it around and we're gonna score it at 1.5, and then we're gonna turn it all the way around again and score it at 1.5. And I just do that to make it a little bit simpler. You could do the measurements out, but I like doing it this way. I'm going to do all my scoring first for all 3 of my pieces. That way it'll stay nice and simple. So I scored at 4.5, 6, and 9.5, and then I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to score it at 1.5 and turn it all the way around and score it at 1.5 again. And then my last piece, we're going to score it at 4.5, 6, 9.5, turn it around, 1.5, and then all the way around and 1.5. And then that's it. We've scored all 3 pieces. Nice and simple. I didn't do any preparing for this project because it's all pretty simple. So I figured it'd be easier to just do it this way. Okay. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove these squares. What I'm doing, I'm working on this little part that's right here. This was my 9.5 score mark. I just want to remove these 2 squares. And that's all we're going to cut off, but we do have a couple more cutting to do. We're going to cut up on this side into this square here, and this side of it as well. And then to make it easier to fold in, I'm just going to angle those sides there, just like that. Then I'm going to turn it around and do the same exact thing on this side. And you want to cut the straight line first because you do want this one and this one to be straight. Okay, there's that. When you're all said and done, this is what your box should look like. Okay, but just to keep things easy, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do all the cutting. So let's cut this one again. I've turned it now, so here's my the littlest side. I'm going to cut the squares off of that, just like I did before. Remove it. Remove it, and then we're going to cut up. And then we're going to cut in at an angle and in at an angle there. And then we're also going to cut up on this side and then remove an angle there and that one, just like that. And then we're going to do the last one, and this comes off. Okay. That one. And that one. And one more. And you'll see how easy these come together. This would also make, if you just wanted to make one of these, it would make a really nice way to give a set of cards as a gift. Okay. Alright. So we've got all three of those cut. Now we can start off just by creasing our score. Crease all the score marks. Okay, and then we're going to, this piece here is just going to get folded down. We just left it on there because it adds stability to this front part, and I like that. So we're just going to go ahead and fold it down, and it's just paper to paper, so it doesn't really matter if you want to use wet glue or your other glue. The only reason I'm using my wet glue, I'm not a fan of the wet glue because I am so impatient. I hate waiting for it to dry. The only reason I'm using mine is because all of the stores in my area are currently out of my ATG tape, and so I had no choice. Okay, then we're going to go ahead, put adhesive on there and on here. Same thing on this side. We're going to put it on this part and this part. So we just put it on the tab and the shorter front part. Okay, and then I'm just folding up the side there, bring this in, fold that up, and then we're going to fold the front just like that. And then I like to lay it down And now I'm going to put some pressure on the inside just to help it stick. For a wet glue, this is a fairly fast adhering glue, so of the wet glues, it's one I like better, so I don't have to wait forever for it to stick. There we go. Then I'm going to set that aside and let it dry a little bit more while we go on to the next one. Just crease all of our score marks. Okay. You can see once you do a few how easy it comes together. And you'll notice that I'm keeping the wet glue down towards the bottom, towards the fold. That's because I don't want it to squish out, which is happening on the sides. I didn't keep it far enough away from the sides, but oh well. I'm not a big fan. I love my ATG, and I use that one for everything, except when all 3 of my craft stores run out of it. Okay. Just put your adhesive on your little tab and your square tab, and then the little tabs connect to the outside of the box. Connect to the outside of the big one, and then you bring up the bottom, the shorter ones, and connect them like that so that it looks nice and seamless in the front. Then we're just going to lay it on its side and apply a little bit of pressure to help the glue to stick, and then we set it aside to dry, and then we get our last one. Then we're going to excuse me, just creasing up all our folds again. There we go. And little glue there to adhere this down. Okay. Then we're going to put our adhesive there, 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 and there. Okay. Then we fold inner tabs for the top part, bring it up, adhere the little tab to the outside of them. So essentially what you're doing is you're sandwiching the little tab in between the 2 bigger tabs, just to kind of hide it away. Then put some pressure on the adhesive, help it make a stick. And then if you used a wet glue, I just kind of like to wipe some of the part that gooed out if I had some. Okay. Then we're going to take our first one, which should be fairly decent, and I'm just going to cut up from my box. I just cut the corner so that it's angled like that. Then I'm going to do the same thing here, so we have a nice angled box. You can see we have a very lovely little box there. Okay, we're going to do that on all of them. You don't need to do this step if you don't want to. I just like the way that it makes it look a little more finished. Okay, and then if you were going to cover these with paper on the outside, I would do that now before we put them into the box, because you're going to want to account for that space when making the outer box. Okay, I'm not going to cover my outer sides with paper. I may slip a piece of paper inside here to mat this part, but I don't need to do that first. Another thing that you could do, one of the things I was originally going to do, is I wanted to stagger them so that they were at varying heights, kind of like that. There. You could do that if you wanted to. In the end, I decided that I liked mine to be a little more flat, but I do like this idea of doing it like this too. I just figured for now it would be easier to make it flat. If I want to make another one later on, I may decide to go ahead and make it staggered. But for now, this is what I'm going to do. Then the next thing I did is I took a piece of ribbon and I tied it around it because I need it to have a nice, I need it to be stuck together really well, so that I can make the size for my next one. All right, but let's go ahead. Now we're going to get our larger piece. This is our 12 by 12 piece. I'm going to get our scoreboard and I'm going to make my first score mark at 2 1/4. Okay, and then I'm going to turn it around and I'm going to make another one at 2 1/4. And then I'm going to turn it around one more time. Nope, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back to my original one. And the easiest way for me to do this is to just put them together and put them on here, because sometimes the measurements aren't, it's not an exact it's not exact. You want it to be nice and snug, so you kind of pick one that is closest without being smaller. So mine ends up being, I'm going to do it at, I'm just going to slide my paper over a tiny bit and I'm going to do it there. Just like that. And then I want to go 2 1/4 inches from that one. 1, 2 1/4. And I'm just going to, that's going to be my cut mark. Okay. Then I'm going to come over here and get these again, and this time I only really need one of them. And I'm going to put it on there again just to see where we want it to end up. There we go. And then I'm going to go 2 1/4 from that. I just, when I'm measuring with, whoa, sorry about that. Bumped the whole tripod right off the table there. When I'm measuring with my scoreboard, I just like to make all my measurements and then I can just come back and cut them later. So now I'm going to go ahead, actually I'm not going to use my trimmer because my blade is dull. I'm just going to go ahead and trim them with my scissors. Okay. Alright, so now this is what we have. We're going to cut these up here. And I'm just going to trim that one in a bit. Turn it around and cut. This side up. And this side up. There we go. Then you want to go ahead and crease all of your folds. Just like that. And then what I did is I didn't seal it until I put the boxes in there. And I'm going to use the tiny last little bit of ATG that I have in here, because I want to put this together, so I want it to dry right away. I don't want to mess around with having to hold it or anything like that. So I'm going to take my 3 boxes, which would have been easier if I tied them together, and then I want to fold the sides in around my boxes, which will help give me a better fit. Okay, so now we have, if your boxes bulge in like this, it means that your bottom part is a little bit too snug. So just undo your sides and loosen them up just a little bit and you'll be just fine. Okay, I just have a little tiny bit of hangover here I don't want on there. And then a little bit here as well. And same for this side. If yours hangs over just a little bit, just go ahead and trim it up nice and neat like that. Okay. And then now is where you can decorate it. You could adhere your boxes together if you wanted to, so they didn't come apart. I kind of like the idea of being able to take them apart should I want to. So I'm not going to adhere them together, but this box does a really good job. The outer box that we put them in does a really good job of holding them together. Here is also where if you wanted to stagger them like this, that's how you would do that. Whoops. You just would have to find some something to put into the boxes to make them stay up like that. And maybe you might want to make this a little bit taller so that it covers more of that. Give it an angle or something if you wanted to. Anyways, like I said, I'm going to leave mine down, I think. We'll see. I still might put it up because I do really like the way that looks. But we'll see how it looks. Anyways, this is my box. And I hope you liked it. You can see on this one this is an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. So it has a much shorter side than this one does. But I wanted it to be a little bit more protected, so I used the 12 by 12 so I could have a bigger side. This one has the 2 1/4 inches. This one has 1.5, I believe. Or maybe it's 1 3/4. I can't remember how big this one was. Anyways, there's your boxes. I hope you like it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me and I will try my best to answer. Bye-bye now.